Good afternoon, everybody. I'm on a little bit of a roll today. I've just been doing the one from last week, and I thought, do you know what? I'm in such a good mood today. Let's start another one that then I can sit and just stitch on an evening this week, and then I'll be able to post pictures later on. So, can you believe it? We're on to number 17. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely loving it. So, this week we're going to focus on a stitch. As you know, the past couple of weeks I've got very excited about new stitches that I've learned, and this is a new one that's called Turkey Stitch, and it's one that somebody mentioned to me, I think, on a workshop, and I had a go at, and I absolutely love it, which creates a fantastic texture. So we have our flag 17. I have got some stranded cottons. You are going to need stranded cottons this week because we need to use full 6 strands. Don't normally use a full 6 stranded cotton all in one go, but for today's technique we need to use stranded cotton. That's really, really important. Piece of fabric, hoop, and I've got my needles all stitched up. I've got a piece of fabric that was sent to me by Joan in the USA. Sent me a gorgeous little bundle of stuff, so I thought, right, gorgeous fabrics, let's have a go at doing this. So I've got my fabric in my hoop. You need your needles threaded up. I've gone for chenille needles because they're a little bit bigger. You don't need a knot in the end of your threads. And I've drawn a shape down the middle of my flag because my turkey stitch, I'm going to do it here, coming down here, and it's a textured stitch. Once you get going, it's fairly straightforward. It's just the getting going. So I'm going to start off with my darker one. So what you're going to do with this stitch is, rather than coming from the back, you actually start from the front. And you're going to come in from the front. If I just try and see if the camera's going to play. We're playing, yep. And you want to leave about an inch sticking up of your thread. And you're going to do a locking stitch. So every stitch that we do a locking stitch. And basically, a locking stitch is just a tiny, tiny stitch. So I'm going to bring my thread down and through the fabric, and then we're going to do a little locking stitch, which is a little stitch that just goes over the top of what you've just done. So just going from one side to the other. Oops, don't pull that through. One side to the other side. And that is my locking stitch. Okay, now we're going to create a loop. Now your loop is going to come up. It comes up that thread there, so it's going to come up this thread here, and you're going to make a loop, and when it goes back down on that loop, you do a locking stitch, and then the next loop comes out of this hole, loop up and over, locking stitch. So you're always coming up and over. Okay, so you bring it up, create a loop, so about an inch long, create a loop. Now we've got a locking stitch over those two, and now need a locking stitch on the next one. Locking stitch over the top. Okay, and then I'm going to bring my thread up as near as I can, ideally if we can, out of the same hole, oops, that loop came out of. It's got knotted up at the back. We make another loop, so we go back down. And then we've now got a free thread here, so we need a locking stitch. That's basically what we're doing all the time, is coming back up the stitch that we just went down. Create a loop. It doesn't matter if the loops are all different lengths, because what we're actually going to do is we're going to give it all a haircut. So a little locking stitch, bring it back up behind the locking stitch, create a loop. locking stitch, come up behind, create. So it's going to take up quite a bit of thread, this, and it's going to take quite a bit of stitching, which is why I decided I was going to start this one just when I finished my last one. Okay, so I've got my locking stitch, so I've got those ones there, those little loops. Okay, I'm going to finish that one off there, so I've done a line. And what I'm going to do, you could do it all the same colour, but I want to change mine up a little bit. I want to try mix different colours in and amongst it all. So I've done that there. So if you're going to come onto your next line, you need to start just next to where you've done, where you started. So I'm going to come down, create my little stick. So I've got my stick on my next one, do my locking stitch, and then come back up behind that locking stitch, behind the locking stitch, there we go. Create a loop, the stitch that's just gone down, pop a locking stitch over it, and then come back up behind your locking stitch to create another loop. Now you don't have to keep going across in lines, so you can do little groups of colours. So I've sort of pulled out the greens in that bit. Okay, so I've got those three there. So if I want to come down and do a little line down here, I need to bring my thread up, go down. Now obviously I've now got two downs, so all I need to do there is a locking stitch over the first one, a locking stitch over the second one, there we go, and then I can start coming back across. So I can come up from my second locking stitch, create my loop, back down, locking stitch, come back up. So that's the basic principle, and what you want to do is you're just going to fill a whole section of your piece. So I'm probably going to do some coming here and coming down there. I was going to fill the whole thing, but that tiny little bit there's taken me 8 minutes. So I've done that tiny little bit. So yeah, don't think that's going to happen. Right, so I'm coming back down, so come up from behind my locking stitch. This time I'm going to come down, make your loop, locking stitch, and then come from behind your locking stitch. So basically wherever you go down, you need a locking stitch. And what that's going to do, because what we're going to do is we're going to trim all this to create a bit like a lovely furry texture. These locking stitches just mean that the threads are not going to come out. You're sort of fastening them in, which is why these need to come from behind a locking stitch. Back down. So if I say that I'm going to finish that because I'm running out of thread, do a locking stitch, locking stitch, tie it off at the back, and then just get your next thread. So you could go back to your original colour, you could mix in a different colour, you could have some little pops of colour. 1, 2, 3. So come to this one. So I might want to do a little bit of a line of these. Oops, so remember, coming from the front, leave your first little tail. It doesn't matter if these are all different shapes, different lengths, because when it comes to trimming them, you'll be able to decide how long they're going to be. You just don't want to make them too short. So do your loop. Lock your stitch. So basically that's all I'm going to sit and do now. I'm going to go make myself a cup of coffee. Sit and loopy-loopy for England. Oops. Oh, nuts. There we go. Getting everything fastened together. Right, where was I up to? Locking stitch. And then I'll come back when I've done it all and I shall show you the next step. I think I've just got that all tangled up. Yep. Let's try again. That's that, locking stitch. Come from behind. Because I got distracted then. One of the reasons why we're using the 6 strands is because then when we trim it, we'll open all the strands up. So it'll then become this lovely fluffy texture, which is why if you didn't use a 6-stranded one, it's not gonna, well, it would work because you can still open your threads up, but it won't be as effective. Oops. So if you decide you're coming back down a line, first time I did it when I did that double lock, you don't need to do, because what you can do is just bring it down a bit further, and then all you have to do is just make sure that one you've just brought down, just lock that. I don't know why I ended up doing a double lock. Lock that stitch, come up from behind, create your loop, lock your stitch. But you do want to get your lines of stitching quite close together. The closer together they are, the more effective this becomes as a technique. So I'm coming up from behind my locking stitch. Loop. Unlock it down. Right. So what I'm going to go and do now is I'm just going to go and sit and do loads of these, and then I will be back shortly and I'll carry on showing you what to do. Have fun. So you can see getting loads of loops built up on there at the moment. So I've just got lots and lots more to do. Okay, I will see you in a little bit. Right, I'm back. So that was a little bit of a shocker as to how long that was going to take. I ended up not going right the way up here because I spent 2 evenings doing all my chicken scratch. Not chicken scratch, what am I talking about? Turkey stitch. Oh, got totally lost there with what I was thinking of. So sort of see I've gone down the edge of there, and then on that side I've done a bit there, and then I've sort of filled it in. So I've mixed in different stitches. I had gone with all the greens, and then as you can see I was running out of my greens, so I threw in a little bit of oranges as well. CGT pantoufle, don't know what it's called. Anyway, so this is the fun bit now where we're going to give it a haircut. So this is where the fact that you've got stranded cottons works really well. So to start off with, just start snipping. So this is why we did that locking stitch, because what that's going to do then as we free all these, it's going to make sure that they stay. More things for my art. Actually, I probably should be doing this over the top of it and make my life a little bit easier. So just look for all your little hoops. Give them a trim. And then what you're going to do is sort of play hairdressers. My mum was a hairdresser, so I should be good at this. We've got hairdressers in our family. Quite a few, I think there's about 4 or 5 generations of hairdressers. Right, so I'm going to trim it a little bit shorter at the edges, that you can sort of see we're beginning to build up that like fluffy surface. So I'm just going to angle my scissors at the edge, and I might make it a little bit shorter at the top. If you put your finger through the back, it just lifts up the pile. Just making sure that you've gone through and just released all your little hoops. Right, let's see where we're up to. You can see the back there, it's all the stitching, all the little locking stitches. Oh, that's way cute. So this is, like I say, where the 6 strands comes in really well, because you're just sort of opening them all up. So where you've blended all your stitches together, it all starts adding together. Is it going to focus? No. Come on, focus. You know you want to. Obviously you don't want to today. No, I'm not playing ball. There we go. So you can sort of see the pile that's on there. So it's one of those things that you'll keep fluffing up, and then you'll come back to and you go, oh, there's a long strand there, so probably I shouldn't be a hairdresser. Stick to what you know. Right. Oh, this is going to be one of those things, I think, that I'm just going to keep coming back to. Fluff it up. Fluff it up. It's going to be the saying for the day today, I think. And you could have it so that it's all different lengths if you wanted to, or try and get it fairly even. Might even have to give it a bit of a vac to pull bits off. Right, so there we go. That's our Whoopie tag for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I'll just need to iron that so it gets rid of that line there, but that's our turkey stitch. So it's a textured stitch. It might be another one of those ones, something that you really like doing, something that you really don't like doing. It took me, I probably sat and did that over 2 evenings, adding all the threads, but I think it's worth it, especially once you start mixing it up and you can see that where I did like the groups of colours. Oh, that looks quite cool. Where I did the groups of colours, they all sort of start blending into each other. I think it's got to be one of these things as well that at some point you just go put the scissors down and walk away. Scissors down, walk away. So I hope you enjoy that one. It'll take you a little bit of time to do it, but it's another one to do. So as usual, I will see you same time, same place next week. Happy stitching.